Most betta fish owners are making the same deadly mistakes, and their fish are suffering because of it. What you're about to hear will completely change the way you look at your tank, your water, and even the bowl sitting on your shelf right now. Betta fish are one of the most popular pets in the world. They're beautiful, they're affordable, and they seem incredibly easy to care for. Walk into any pet store and you'll see them lined up in tiny cups, fins billowing like silk in the wind, bright colors flashing under fluorescent lights. They look resilient. They look like they can handle anything. But here's what the pet store doesn't tell you. What those cups represent is not a comfortable life. It's a holding pattern, a survival mode. And the moment you bring your betta home and place them in the wrong environment, that survival mode continues, slowly, silently, and invisibly, until one day you wake up and your fish is floating at the top of the water. That moment doesn't have to happen. And after everything you're about to learn, it won't. Let's start with the single biggest myth in betta fish care. You've heard it before. Maybe you even believed it. Bettas can live in a small bowl, maybe even a vase, maybe even a cup. After all, in the wild, they live in shallow rice paddies, right? They're built for small spaces. They breathe air directly from the surface, so a little bowl should be just fine. Wrong. Completely, dangerously wrong. Yes, bettas do come from shallow waters in Southeast Asia. Yes, they have a specialized organ called the Labyrinth organ that allows them to breathe oxygen directly from the air above the water's surface. But shallow doesn't mean small. Those rice paddies, those slow-moving streams, those flooded fields, they stretch for miles. They change with the seasons. They have endless space for a single fish to roam, to explore, to establish territory. A tiny bowl gives your betta less space than a prison cell. And unlike a prison cell, a bowl has no filtration, no stable temperature, no safe place to hide, and no way to process the toxic waste your fish produces every single day. Ammonia is the invisible killer of betta fish. Every time your betta eats, every time they breathe, every time they produce waste, ammonia builds up in the water. In a large, properly cycled tank, beneficial bacteria process that ammonia before it ever becomes a problem. But in a small bowl with no filter, that ammonia has nowhere to go. It just builds and builds and builds. At low levels, ammonia causes stress. It burns the gills. It makes breathing harder. Your fish starts moving less, eating less, sitting at the bottom. You might think he's just tired. You might think he's getting old, but he's being slowly poisoned by the water he lives in. At higher levels, ammonia causes fin rot, chemical burns on the body, damage to the nervous system, and eventually, death. And the terrifying part is that you can't see ammonia. The water can look perfectly clear and still be deadly. The only way to know is to test it. This is why a proper aquarium with a filter is not optional. It's the bare minimum. Betta fish need at minimum 5 gallons of water. 10 gallons is even better. Not because they need to swim laps, but because a larger volume of water dilutes toxins, maintains more stable temperature, and gives your beneficial bacteria colonies enough surface area to truly thrive and keep your fish safe. Speaking of temperature, this is another silent killer that almost no beginner understands. Betta fish are tropical animals. They come from regions where water temperatures stay consistently between 76 and 82 degrees Fahrenheit. That's not a range they prefer. That's the range their bodies are designed to function in. When the temperature drops below that range, even just a few degrees, your betta's immune system slows down. Their metabolism slows. They become lethargic, prone to infection, and vulnerable to diseases like itch and velvet that would never take hold in a healthy, warm tank. A betta kept at 70 degrees doesn't look sick right away, but his immune system is running at maybe 40% capacity. Every day is a battle his body is slowly losing, and room temperature is not enough. Even in a warm house, the ambient air temperature and the water temperature are not the same thing. Water loses heat. Without a heater, your betta tank fluctuates with every open window, every air conditioning cycle, every cold night. That fluctuation alone, even between 75 and 80 degrees throughout the day, causes chronic stress that weakens your fish over time. A small aquarium heater is one of the cheapest, most important investments you can make. It costs less than $10 in most cases, and it could add years to your Betta's life. Now let's talk about something that surprises almost every Betta owner who hears it for the first time. Betta fish get lonely. Not in the way a dog gets lonely, but they are intelligent, curious, stimulus-seeking creatures. In the wild, they spend their days exploring, hunting, hiding, watching. Their environment is rich and constantly changing. A bare tank with no decorations, no plants, no hiding spots, and no enrichment is like putting a person in a white room with nothing to do. The fish doesn't die right away, but he deteriorates. He stops exploring because there's nothing to explore. He starts glass surfing, swimming frantically up and down the sides of the tank, which is a behavioral sign of stress and boredom. He may start biting his own fins, another stress behavior that can lead to serious infection. Live plants are one of the best things you can add to a Betta tank, not just for beauty, for biology and behavior. Live plants absorb nitrates, produce oxygen, host beneficial microorganisms, and give your Betta something to do. He'll weave between the leaves. He'll rest on broad surfaces near the top of the water. He'll investigate every new plant you add as if it's a whole new world. If live plants feel overwhelming, start with Java fern or Anubias. Both are nearly indestructible, grow in low light, and require no special substrate. You can attach them to driftwood, place them in the corner of the tank, and watch your Betta immediately begin to explore. Hiding spots are equally important. Bettas in the wild are ambush predators. They evolved to have places to retreat, to watch from a distance, to feel safe. A fish with no hiding spots is a fish that is always exposed, always alert, always in low-grade fight or flight mode. That's not a happy life. It's a stressful one. A simple cave ornament, a terracotta pot placed on its side, even a cluster of dense plants. All of these give your Betta the psychological security he needs to truly relax. Now let's get into feeding, because this is another area where loving owners accidentally harm their fish. More food does not mean more love. Bettas have stomachs roughly the size of their eyeball. Their digestive systems are not built for large quantities of food at once. Overfeeding is one of the leading causes of constipation, bloat, and a condition called swim bladder disorder, where the fish loses the ability to control his buoyancy and either floats helplessly at the surface or sinks to the bottom. Feed your Betta once a day or twice a day in very small portions. A few pellets, enough to be eaten in 2 to 3 minutes with nothing left over. Once a week, skip a feeding entirely. This fasting day helps clear the digestive system and mimics the natural variability of food availability in the wild. And speaking of food, variety matters. Pellets are convenient, but they shouldn't be the only thing your Betta eats. Frozen or freeze-dried bloodworms, brine shrimp, and Daphnia offer enrichment, protein, and nutrients that pellets alone don't fully provide. More importantly, the act of hunting, even for frozen prey thawing in the water, stimulates your Betta's natural instincts and keeps his mind engaged. There is one more thing that most Betta owners never think about until it's too late. Water changes. Regular partial water changes are not optional maintenance. They are life support. Even with a filter, even with a perfectly cycled tank, waste accumulates. Nitrates build up. The chemistry of the water shifts. A weekly partial water change, removing about 25 to 30% of the water and replacing it with treated, temperature-matched water, keeps the environment stable, removes accumulated toxins, and replenishes trace minerals. The water you add back must be treated with a dechlorinator. Tap water contains chlorine and chloramines that are deadly to fish and to the beneficial bacteria in your filter. This step takes 10 seconds and costs almost nothing. Skipping it could crash your entire tank. Temperature match is equally important. Pouring cold water from the tap into a warm tank causes thermal shock. Your Betta's immune system crashes. His metabolism goes haywire. The stress alone can trigger illness. Always let your replacement water sit with the heater running or match it closely with warm tap water before adding it in. You started reading this because you have a Betta fish, or you're thinking about getting one. And maybe some of what you've just learned surprised you. Maybe some of it was uncomfortable to hear. That's okay. The best thing about knowledge is that the moment you have it, you can act on it. A 5-gallon tank with a filter and heater, live plants and a hiding spot, small daily feedings with variety, weekly water changes with treated, temperature-matched water, and a little time each day just watching. Because Betta fish reward observation, you'll start to see personality. You'll notice when something is off before it becomes a crisis. You'll become not just an owner, but a real caretaker. Your Betta can live 4, 5, even 6 or more years in the right environment. They can recognize your face. They'll come to the front of the tank when you walk by. They'll display their fins proudly when they feel safe and happy. They are extraordinary little animals, and they deserve an extraordinary life. Now you know how to give them one.